Oh, Mr. Roman Daka Wonodi is still with us in the studio. I think you're trying to explain just before we went on break why it is that the discos might be upset with the eligible customers declaration.
Well, I think that, yes, they see the competition. So what is the eligible customer regulation? What are the intent? One, to bring competition. And, one of the things that we've always felt that some of the discos are laid back. And once you have a monopoly, you tend to want to do things at your own pace. So the declaration of eligible customers was, one of the intents is to bring competition. The other is to also to improve the revenue in the system. And by having generation companies who have not been paid in full, have opportunity to sell directly to customers who would pay, and then also to tap into bringing out some unserved capacity, unutilized capacity. So I think that is that competition that worries the discos, and the competition targets people who consume large quantities and might be easier to market to. So yes, but at the same time, there is the provision that there is a competition charge. So to the extent that they lose some revenue, the commission could work out some form of payment to be made by the eligible customers that will go to the discos to take care of any competition charges or losses that they might incur in this. But at the end of the day, I think that the discos need to wake up. They've held the industry to ransom in some instances like metering. And one of the expectations is also that we see the metering within the industry being deregulated and opened up to some other persons. So competition frightens people who are in a monopoly status, and I think the discos are reacting very badly because the market, there's still a lot to be done within the market, and the discos still have the primary advantage to serve the eligible customers. It allows them actually to serve them differently at a higher tariff too. So, yeah, it's a provision that they could actually take advantage of too.
But how much of a threat really is this? When you look at, I'm just looking at the incentive for the eligible customer, for instance, apart from the fact that you're going directly to the GenCos to get your electricity, the charges will be premium charges, right?
That is correct.
And then when you look at the fact that you might need to pay the TCN and maybe the discos in some instances, maybe competition charges or even charges for wheeling the electricity to you, right, is that really an incentive for the eligible customer?
Well, you have to look at that. You do not compare that to the cost of how much the discos charge them currently. It is the fact that so many, especially industries and large estates depend on diesel. So that's what they're looking at, is the cost of alternative to diesel and then having some other person who generates power with natural gas and then having to pay transmission or wheeling charges to get it there. So there is good incentive for someone, an eligible customer, to try to contract with a generation company directly. Yes.
So, looking at you, the Guardian is spelling out the story very clearly this morning, even on its front page here. They're coming from the banking sector. Right now, it would seem that the nation's banks seem to be in some danger as well, because they're saying they could lose over 466 billion naira owing to exposures to the power sector. The discos are also saying that this is going to affect our capacity to be able to repay back the loans that we've taken from the banks. Is that really a threat?
There's a threat to the loans in the sector, but I don't think it's because of the discos. It's not because of this. The discos need to sit up and do some work. That's the truth. The discos need to do some business development to be able to help the industry move forward. There are no investments being made in network enhancement, right? So there is the opportunity that with the eligible customers, generation companies that seek to identify eligible customers might actually help in putting some cables around the network and enhance the network. So the loans are under threat, but at the end of the day, if you have a more viable market, then you are more likely to pay the loans than what you have currently. We're not moving forward. We continue to see that the industry continues to shed, lose revenue, and the loans are actually, or the debt continues to pile up. So the way we've been going is not what the discos will say that they want that status quo maintained. We need to change it and then make sure that people get better supply, and with that, a higher revenue for the industry.
You say that a force majeure would not be appropriate in this instance. Do you see it as a threat to the nation's power sector?
I think it's just it's a discourse trying to take. We've seen this in the past. You know, the very first time that the guarantees that were put in place were threatened to be called by the bulk trader, and the NEC put some fines. The discourse would always go to force majeure. You know, there is no change in law in this case. The law exists. There's a law in the EPSRA that says somewhere along the line, when there is a bit of competition, the minister will declare eligible customers. So what are the competition? What do you expect? You expect that discos are in a position to contract power directly. They've had the embedded generation, which would allow them contract power outside of the bulk trader. As a matter of fact, a co-disco and a Ikeja disco had entered into an agreement to purchase power from Egbin, right? So you've seen where there are instances, and the last tariff made a provision for special tariff, which said that discos can go out and contract with certain individuals at a much higher tariff outside of what is approved by NEC, just based on willing buyer, willing seller. So those things have been in the place. The discos have not exploited it because of monopoly power. They've sat down and working the industry at their best rate. We need to do something differently, and I think the competition will be better for everyone in the industry. Well,
you seem to be painting the discos as the bad boys this morning.
No, because they've chosen to be bad boys in this matter. So I've always had sympathies for the discos, and some of them, not all of them, right? So there are some discos that are working very hard towards improving, though the intention is good, but the capacity might not be there in terms of the required finance to do what they need to do.
Why do you think exactly? You just